Summer 2026 is officially the most stacked season in anime history, but while everyone is looking at Bleach, a dark horse goth baddie romance is probably about to steal the spotlight. Here are the must-watch shows of the summer. The first is the absolute dark horse hit of the summer, and it is actually an adult slice-of-life romance. Let's get back in touch with some of our softer side that wants that squishy tenderness of a nice moment with a goth baddie. Of course, I'm talking about Smoking Behind the Supermarket with You. It follows an exhausted 40-year-old salaryman named Sasaki. He has been chewed up and spit out by capitalist corporate work, and so his only solace is going to his local grocery store to see the cheerful smile of a cashier named Yamada. But after he can't find her one night, a chain-smoking woman with a rebellious streak named Tanya invites him to share a cigarette with him behind the supermarket. What happens next is actually one of the most beautiful written stories, full of subcontext and commentary on Japanese society in a very long time. Sasaki forms a deep relationship with Tayama over sharing cigarettes, and the constant identity crisis of adult life, and the loneliness we all experience being an adult. And this one gets it right. The studio behind this anime is Asahi Production, who recently produced their breakout hit Gushing Over Magical Girls. It's also a collaborative project between co-directors Tadato Suzuki and Aoi Mori that already has nailed the focus on the darker, moodier lighting juxtaposed with the bright night lights of Japan's bustling city structures. It's very atmospheric and is focused on showing the intimacy between two people who are having an honest conversation where there are no faces or identities put behind them. It's very atmospheric and is focused on showing the intimacy between two people who are having an honest conversation where there are no faces or identities being put up. Sasaki and Tayama are honest, and the directors capture this brilliantly. The series will be a breezy 12 episodes with no season 2 confirmed, but with the continued success of the manga and the 12-episode miniseries that has already aired in Japan receiving rave reviews, I'd bet on a season 2 in its future. But do not write this series off if you think you can. This series actually has already defied many odds. Originally started its life as an incredibly popular word-of-mouth indie comic on Twitter no less, and through word of mouth was picked up by Square Enix and published in monthly big Gangang. The author, Jinushi, said that the series came to him during a late-night walk, wondering how two completely different societal outcasts could find common ground when they are stripped of their professional work, shedding it and showing only the tenderness underneath. So, at the core of this story is human connection in a world where we constantly wear masks for society, and the back alley represents a sanctuary where you can breathe, exhale your stress, and be seen for exactly who you are. To me, this is the most essential watch of the summer 2026 season above all else, especially adults or young adults in the West like in America. It really does strip away all of the flashy tropes of modern anime to give this subtle charm built on subtext, silence, and subtle slow burn romantic tension that makes you want to find your own back alley moment where you can relate and be who you are without a compromise or a mask. Watch out for the subtext of this series. This one is a brilliant story and I highly recommend it. Subscribe as I will be covering this series. Youjo Senki, the anime about a murder lolly waging war, is officially back after season 1 and a movie and 10 years of production hell. This series is set in an alternate history world war where Tanya von Degurachoff, who was a hyper-rational and cold-blooded Japanese salaryman that was reincarnated into the body of an elite military orphan. The twist here is that instead of just normal warfare, the series is spiced up with the use of magic, which actually works out really well for this series. In this world, the Empire is finding itself surrounded by hostile nations on all sides, and they will be defeated. Tanya essentially uses her strategies as a salaryman to wage a war of attrition on the battlefield, while also the petty and divine being aptly known as Being X. What I love about Youjo Senki is the dynamic of Tanya essentially trying to play out a strategy to best Being X, while also trying to win the war to benefit her own goals. It's a very interesting series, especially if you like the idea of the isekai trope, but without any of the baggage of the isekai trope. For season 2, Studio Nut brought in Takakazu Yamamoto. The director pretty much has a proven track record with high-intensity series like My Hero Academia, so the action here is in good hands, and because Kenta Ihara is back on the script, expect the same razor-sharp geopolitics that made the first season so unique. Plus, Hosogo is back to provide his over the top and very evil designs, nearly horror movie-esque, I would even say. Good news is that they are just going for a 12-episode run, which I am okay with, simply because season 2 has been in development hell for so long that this series needs to honestly get a good pace with a new team before it's able to be like, say, Tensei putting out new seasons every other year. However, the big reason you guys need to check this out is because you can really immerse yourself into this series, because the original creator, Carlo Zinn, is a massive history nerd and put a lot of research into 20th century European wars and military history, but also combines that with the economics of the time and the use of the shady ways governments skirt around laws in war to wage heinous acts of war crimes and violence. It's truly an eye-opener, and there will actually be some times where you'll have to laugh at how Tanya goes about doing something, which is actually intended, as Youjo Senki is a dark comedy about extreme corporate control and unchecked capitalism through hyper-rational thought. As he puts it himself, Tanya is a monster created by modern corporate bureaucracy. When you strip away human empathy in the name of efficiency, you get a little girl rewriting the rules of war crimes. And that really is what makes this series one of the most unique war anime ever made. Right up there with Attack on Titan for its uncompromising view on war. I have a recap of the first season and the movie up right here, so this will help you get caught up. And honestly, watching Tanya rewrite war crimes is thirsty work, which is why I'm using my Gamer Subs code CTactics to get 10% off Gamer Subs and refresh myself. Alright, let's waste no time. Ghost in the Shell is back, but instead of continuing on with a new story, the creators behind Don Science Saru, are adapting for the first time ever the original manga. That's right, it's never been adapted. Already, this new adaptation has been making the rounds and pretty much trending everywhere, and very anticipated. The art style is pretty much unreal, and the talent behind this is even crazier the more you dive into it. Moko-chan, the key visionary behind some of Devilman Crybaby's last episode, and episode director for Don, is debuting in his first full directorial role. And you can immediately see the Devilman and Don influence in the trailers and promotional materials. It's clearly bringing the original 80s aesthetic, but in full high definition. It reminds me a bit of anime we'll talk about later in Mushoku Tensei, but this anime already looks absolutely beautiful. It's also a big anime for me personally, as Ghost in the Shell 1995 is one of the very first films and anime I ever saw as a kid. It also went on to directly inspire The Matrix, Cyberpunk 2077, and Cyberpunk Edgerunners, some of my favorite and most significant stories probably ever made. So this original story finally being adapted is very important and should be on everyone's radar. But if this is your first gets, then you should be experiencing something amazing here. The year is 2029. The world has endured 4 world wars and ushered in a new age of technological advancement that has largely transformed society as humanity knows it. Cybernetic enhancements, robotic AIs, and cyborgs have now become the norm in a world where humans are more machine than man. However, with this modern change, crime started evolving as well. Hackers, corrupt officials, and other opportunists have found ways to sneak into innovative systems for their own personal agendas. In Japan, where such crimes run rampant, the government establishes Section 9, a clandestine team of highly trained operatives to counter these threats. Major Motoko Kusanagi, a woman of impenetrable caliber and bravado, leads Section 9 on its mission to tackle cyber terrorism and ensure that the nation's stability does not falter in the pace of the rapidly progressing future. I should also warn you that this will be edgy and feature a lot of nudity, full-on sex scenes, and tons of violence. While Gits is known for a lot of existentialist storytelling, the original manga was known as pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable for a manga back in the day. I won't spoil anything, but one of the first scenes in the manga is a full-on sex scene with the Major, so be prepared for a darker, grittier, and more adult adaptation. This is more in line with something like Devilman Crybaby than it is Don. So buckle up and subscribe to this channel now, as I will be covering this anime in an extensive capacity. But before we get into the main events of this video, Yani Neko is this season's absolute wildcard. It's a literal trash fire of a comedy that, against all odds, has the director of Freerun behind it. It's either going to be a disaster or a genius subversion, which I'm honestly hoping for, but also sort of hoping it's kind of trash too. This is the season's joke anime, but what is it really about? Well, Yani is a cat girl with a seriously bad smoking habit. She smokes so much that her apartment smells like ash and is littered with cigarette butts, and plenty of other trash. Every time she tries to quit, she becomes weak to the cravings and gives in almost instantly. Will she ever get her life together, or is she doomed to live a chain-smoking slob forever. Honestly, I have no idea what to expect from this, but there is a lot of serious talent behind the production here. Bilberry Animation is producing it, and they're known for Quintessential Quintuplet Season 2, 100 Girlfriends, Witch Watch. All of these were major hits for the studio, so I don't know. Could this be good? This go around, they're producing this anime, which is odd. That being said, I would be lying if I said I wasn't morbidly interested in it from a content perspective. Though Yani Neko seems to be on the surface a very unserious series, I'm not sure if it's just about degenerate, slobby cat girls just yet. My hope is that there is a message behind this and it offers some more depth. Obviously, this is probably just going to be a lot of crazy antics, but that being said, the free-run director, so who the hell knows? Subscribe for more coverage on this one. So we've been waiting forever for this one. With over 2 decades of airing, the Bleach anime is finally coming to a conclusion with part 4 of the 1,000-Year Blood War. F's in the chat, boys. No more Yoruichi cross soy fond Yuri hype. Okay, but seriously, I'm convinced at this point we're probably getting more Bleach content after this. Blood War has been nothing but good for the audience of Bleach, and there's always seemingly something to talk about each week whenever it airs. But once again, Studio Pierrot is returning to animate this, and they are still doing the highly cinematic, ultra premium look. And we got some key players still in the game for the finale. It's directed by Tomohisa Toguchi, who really is known as the guy who made this aggressive, modern compositing style. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. The high contrast color grading, the letterboxing. This really is the guy who made parts 1 through 3 feel like an event and upgraded its visuals to match a more modern aesthetic and approach. I think it's fair to say that Toguchi-san has created the Final Fantasy VII Remake trilogy of anime. So I think after Blood War concludes, pay attention to where this guy is going, because I wouldn't be surprised if he gets put onto something even more high profile than Bleach, maybe even the Bleach sequel, which we'll talk about just in a second. Now, like previous seasons, this will be 13 episodes and the end of the Blood War after 4 seasons and 52 masterful episodes overall. But this is not the last we'll see from Bleach. The manga is likely returning with the long-awaited Hell arc. Though don't worry, we're still going to get some more original stuff with part 4, because it's going to feature new anime original scenes and even an ending. At the time of the original manga's run, Tite Kubo had to cut the series short in 2016 due to his health, so we actually are getting the ultimate director's cut with part 4. We're getting new fights, new character arcs, and a brand new story. So this is a must-watch, at least for me, because this is actually the ultimate redemption arc for Bleach coming to fruition, which is rare for just anime. In recent memory, it's only really happened with series like Attack on Titan, where the original manga is deemed controversial, and then the anime goes back and sort of sets the record straight. Not to answer to the fans, but to prove something to themselves, and this feels like Kubo is getting that send-off he wanted in 2016. For that alone, I may talk about this series weekly just so I could say I was there. And before you ask, yes, I have a recap for parts 1 through 3 of the Blood War, so you can get caught up. Season 3 of Tensei is here, and we continue Rudy's saga to become the ultimate harem master. After the whirlwind that was Season 2, Season 3 picks directly up after Rudy's Labyrinth arc, in which he not only becomes a father, but gets a second wife in Roxy shortly after their reunion. The dynamic with this season is a bit different, as he is no longer trying to survive or find his mother. He is now a husband and a family man who now must navigate the complexity of his mother's lost memories, but also the promise of a new high-stakes political subplot. And of course, fan-favorite character and maybe the future third wife of Rudy, Eris, is finally returning after he left Rudy with her lock of hair and a non-functioning organ. So if anything, Season 3 should be unique just for that return alone. Studio Bind is once again helming the anime, which is to be expected. The studio was literally created to specifically adapt Tensei. With that, you have returning director Ryosuke Shibuya, who is keeping the same insane 90s throwback style production, creating that pristine, ultra-grounded, real living environment type of feel. This will be split core as expected with most modern anime post-pandemic, being 24 episode split core, so 12 episodes now and then 12 later. I think it goes without saying that at this point, Tensei Season 3 will likely be controversial, mostly just due to people not liking this type of power fantasy, where the main character doesn't become perfect, but instead becomes responsible. Whether you agree with that or disagree, it's likely to be one of the most watched anime of the season, and easily the most hyped fantasy anime of the season. So if you like a fantasy world that disguises a lot of its rapid level ups, harems, and the degenerate main character archetype with this thick layer of ultra realism, groundedness, and continuity, then as you probably are already aware after 3 seasons, this is for you. But it will be interesting to see how much of the series will be left to adapt. With 26 volumes, this season is expected to adapt up to or around the volume 18 mark when it all finishes. So my guess is we're gonna have 5 to 6 seasons of this series, give or take, which should mean that Studio Bind may start taking on newer projects in the future, and if so, the studio is one to look out for. Whatever they decide to do next though, whether it be the most anticipated Tensei sequel series that the author plans to do or something else, they are a team that is going to be important to the future of anime. I have a recap for Season 1, Season 2, and all of its OVAs right here. Now, knowing which studios are behind these anime is one thing, but understanding the high-stakes gamble happening behind the scenes, that is another. But if you want to understand why a single 12-episode run can determine if a studio like Bind or Madhouse even exists next year, you need to see this, because all that atmospheric lighting and cinematic style that we just talked about, it doesn't matter if the studio collapses before the finale. Check out this video here to see a studio claw itself back from the brink to bring its defining masterpiece. Make it a great day or not, the choice is yours.